Welcome back, ladies, gentlemen, and all else. Today I am especially excited. Excited because today we are discussing quite possibly my favorite video game franchise of all time, Mother. Ever since I sat down to play Earthbound and Mother 3 back when I was around 13, I have held both games in extremely high regard and very, very close to my heart. Mother 3 especially. I haven't really played too much of the first game though, because it hasn't aged gracefully, I'm afraid. But without spoiling anything myself, because the following story will spoil some stuff regarding Earthbound anyways, but if you have played through Mother 3, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say I still get choked up hearing tracks like It Is Finished and Sunflowers and Illusions after all these years. Mother 3 is without question one of my favorite games I've ever played because of how much it was able to move me with its beautiful, beautiful story. If you haven't played it already, go do it, please, it's so worth it. But play Earthbound first too, it's really good. Of course, with such a passionate and still active fanbase for this once obscure game series out there, we were, let's say, bound to be graced with one or two creepypastas about them back when everything needed to become a creepypasta. This series would probably lend itself well to some more horrifying literature due to some of the darker themes the games include, so it's not surprising to find a story such as this one out there. This story is known as Bound to Death. The title certainly screams Earthbound and or Mother, doesn't it? Now here's a fun fact before we begin. I actually read this story years ago back when I was really into creepypastas, and due to my younger age, I actually found it quite enjoyable, because back then, grammar and spelling didn't matter much to me as I had a harder time detecting poor uses of these as English is not my first language. So in a way, there is an audience for stories like these. Looking back, yeah, this story has some major flaws holding it back, but back then, not too noticeable if I'm gonna be honest. I even remember Mutahar from Some Ordinary Gamers reading the story too, so it did make the rounds for a bit. And to be fair to the author, they did write a remake of this story further down the line, and from what I've heard, it is supposed to be an improvement over this one. It's not the one I will be reading today, but if you would be interested in me checking that one out too and comparing it to its original version, feel free to let me know in the comments below, because remaking a story and improving on it goes really well with my philosophy, doesn't it? To once again, keep writing, keep improving. Alright, enough of me rambling. Let's get into the story. This is Bound to Death. Hello, I am your everyday video game player. Hardcore gamer at work. I was highly unusual among most gamers though. I was an Earthbound fan. Many people are most addicted to Pokemon or Mega Man or even Legend of Zelda, but I am an Earthbound fan. Goddamn normies, I swear. Many fans of Earthbound have given up on the series. Not me. Mostly because the series stopped. Earthbound is not gonna go on Virtual Console. Mother 1 and 3 were never released in USA. You get the idea. Boy, I've got some good news for you. Anyways, I was playing my Earthbound game when I got to the Giygas fight. Suddenly it froze. I thought this was a common error, so I restarted. I then saw my save file was deleted. Ugh, another one of those damned pirated chart rages. Time to go to a store. Oh hey, this author has actually done his research when it comes to this game. He knew about the freaky anti-piracy measures taken with the game. That's commendable at least. It sure goes to show the author somewhat knows what he's talking about. I called my friend to pick me up, seeing as how I am not able to get my driver's license. He came to my house immediately and we set off to the store. We went to the flea market, because where else would you get video games that nobody ever wants anymore? Yeah, good luck finding a legit copy of Earthbound at a random flea market. I then noticed a funny looking chart rage. Instead of a regular picture, it was a blank chart rage with a strip of tape with Earthbound put on it in permanent marker. I knew not to trust those things, seeing as how they are usually pirated or hacked to make a gamer go into suicide. Go into suicide. This story wears self-awareness on its sleeve. I was smart for that, but very desperate. I picked up the Chart Rage. My friend told me that it shouldn't be trusted, but I told him that no other Earthbound Chart Rages were available. You'd be lucky to find 2 copies in the same room, man. He then gave in. I showed the game to the cashier. He examined it and said it was used. You don't say. I bought it anyway. Guess it's worth the risk of going into suicide, isn't it? My friend drove me home and I immediately popped in the Chart Rage, turned on the SNES and started to play. Of course the previous owner wanted to make me scared, so he made 2 files. One said night and the next one said mare. I assumed this reference to Ness's Nightmare. Nice try, previous owner. I made another file and started playing. The gameplay was smooth and great. You don't get that from normal used Chart Rages. I started to like the original owner for not wrecking the Chart Rage. Anyways, just so you know, I picked the classic Ness, Paula, Jeff, Pooh, King, Steak, and Rockin'. I then started. Everything looked fine except when I battled the Titanic Ant. The Titanic Ant looked very unusual. It looked all bloody and sad. Its only actions were, Titanic Ant cried tears of blood. Titanic Ant quivered in fear. Titanic Ant softly said, "Help me." I ignored its pleas and continued to kill it. Sadistic, yes, but I only wanted to win. Oops. When I beat it, it didn't disintegrate. It only fell onto the ground and withered and lost a lot of blood. Oh, the counter is gonna have a field day today. This must have meant the Titanic Ant died. Then the victory menu appeared. Very unusual indeed. But this was only the beginning. Is this when the credits start rolling? When I went onto Giant Step, it was all bloody. The grass was burned and the walls were cracked. I recorded the melody. Only this couldn't be the melody. It played backwards, it was distorted, and it seemed to be sped up 4 times. I tried to turn off the volume, instead it just got louder. I tried to turn up the volume, hoping it would work in reverse. It turned up still. This continued on. You can't seem to catch a break here. All the Guardians were bloody, sad, and had the same actions as the Titanic Ant. The 8 melodies were played backwards, distorted, and sped up 4 times. Yeah, we got it the first time. The areas in which the melodies were recorded looked destroyed. The bones on the floor of Lilliput Steps were bloody and surrounded by guts. The pink cloud had a blood-red color. The fire spring was dried up and raining blood mixed with water. Yeah, we get it! There's lots of red body fluids everywhere. Then, Ness entered Magicant. Magicant's music constantly shifted backwards and forwards. Magicant's music was more distorted than before. It kept getting louder and louder. It was sped up 8 times. How are you able to calculate that stuff? Ness's pajamas were stained in blood. All the people in Magicant were skeletons covered in blood. When you talked to them, they moaned, "Ness, help me, please." When I went into the water, there were no krakens. I also saw corpses of the Guardians in the water, which was red, indicating blood. Dead Titanic Ant, dead Plague Rat of Doom, dead Diamond Dog. I reached Ness's Nightmare. He looked like the only thing that wasn't changed, except in his battle sprite he was covered in blood. Can we please just find something other than blood to scare the reader with? This is exhausting. His background was the assumed fetus form of Giygas. His battle music was mega distorted, shifting backwards and forwards repeatedly. 12 times speed. Volume that could split your ears open. Giygas is fatally wounded. Plus, to make things more weirder, it was called Cole's Nightmare. What the hell? I never entered my name anywhere into the game. This scared the crap out of me. The only action Cole's Nightmare had was, Cole's Nightmare stared at you evilly and said, "You have no reason to live. You have no reason to live. You have no reason to live." I mean, I knew Earthbound covered some serious topics, but this? God damn! I beat him and then the melodies called to me. Only since they were distorted, they decreased Ness's stats severely, and Ness's HP stayed at 0. I then pressed A one more time. It said instead of the normal, Ness got hurt and collapsed, it said, Ness clutched his heart and withered away. The scene changed back to the fire spring. Ness disintegrated into a pool of blood. Paula, Jeff, and Pooh were crying. Paula held Ness and said, "Ness," and then cast PSI fire on herself, and she burned into ashes. Whoa! Jeff fell onto the ground, cried, and then took out a bottle rocket to his face and blasted himself, causing his head to explode. Pooh bowed at Ness's body, then took out his Sword of Kings and stabbed himself in the heart. Well, that took a dark turn real quick. The scene then changed to Pokey laughing, commenting how Ness and his stupid friends were meaningless to his plans. Then he turned off the Devil's Machine. Giygas emerged and cast shadows all over the world. The world was then consumed in darkness. The scene changed to the opening picture you see at the start of the game, only it was nighttime. There was no war against Giygas. Giygas was floating in the sky, and many blood-stained corpses littered the streets. I mean, an alternate timeline where Giygas wins and takes over the world is actually pretty interesting. I'd love to read a fanfic or something about that. Are we gonna get some more information about this new world in the story now? I really want to see how everyone reacts to it. Then Giygas did one more thing. Giygas tried PSI Nightmare. The SNES then suddenly turned off and my TV broke all of a sudden. I called a mechanic, then broke the cartridge into pieces. Why? You could sell that thing for hundreds of dollars. It wasn't even really posing a threat to you. I don't care anymore about Earthbound. I then went to playing some Pokemon, which was one of my other favorite Nintendo series. But the game could not leave my memory. I also was desperate to find out who sold this cartridge of evil. Who wanted to scare kids? Who did this? Scaring children is surely the work of Satan himself. I decided to go back to the flea market I went to. I asked the cashier who sold this cartridge. He then said he didn't know who it was and where the cartridge even came from. He suggested I talk to the boss. I asked him who sold the cartridge. He also didn't know who it was. I just gave up and went home.
Goodbye.
When I got home, I noticed it was late, so I went to sleep. I had a nightmare. I was in the same Magicant Ness was in, only more sinister and no skeletons. I ventured through it and I knew where I was going to end up. I encountered Cole's nightmare again. He said that he created the cartridge hoping for a victim. I guess that answers the question then. He then said that I belonged to him. Ooh, kinky. Giygas then was the only thing I saw in my dreams then, with Cole's nightmare in the background until I woke up. I never touched another Earthbound game again, but the nightmare still haunted me. How? Whenever I saw a large ant, a mole, a plant that hasn't grown in a long time, a mushroom, a sewer rat, a thundercloud, a clump of concrete arranged into a humanoid, or a dog, I always hear the nightmare's voice in my head. He says to me, "This is the guardian of your," insert number here, "sanctuary." Then, whatever it is, grows legs and eyes, and if it doesn't have any, a head just pops out of the thundercloud. Then it moves towards me. Say, what now? They do what? Right in front of you? Their eyes are shown to me. Empty sockets. They cry out blood and softly say, "Help me, Cole." The end. At least this game changed something in the main character's life instead of just having the story end too abruptly. The ending still felt fairly sloppy as nothing really had any time to sink in, but at least it's something. It's almost halfway decent. Almost, it still has a long way to go. Well, compared to some of the other stories we've covered in the past few weeks, this one earns some props for at least being fairly well versed in the lore of the game it's covering, which was kind of fun for a fan of the games to read. However, the story isn't good by any stretch of the imagination. It's a bit too melodramatic for my tastes, and the writing definitely needed to be stronger to convey the story it was trying to tell. Though you can't really expect a full-blown masterpiece out of what is obviously just a passionate fan writing something, who was probably fairly young while writing. Definitely cut down on some of the blood, will ya? You have to come up with more creative ways of describing horrific scenes that are meant to scare or gross out the reader if you want them to stick with the audience. A little blood here and there? Yeah, that's fine, just don't overdo it like this story did. There's not much I can really say about this story than what you can probably see for yourself. The grammar, spelling, and storytelling was quite lacking and contributed to pulling the story down quite a few notches. I think a few rewrites could have definitely helped this one out, which is coincidentally what the author ended up doing further down the line, so hey, there's that. I am actually curious to check out the remake to see how much it improves on this fairly mediocre first attempt, so if you want to see me go through that, let me know in the comments below. I think that's basically all I have to say for this one. It was unfortunately mediocre, with some small inklings of something better in there if you really squint your eyes. With that said, if you enjoyed this video and want to see more content like this, make sure you give this video a like and post your wonderful thoughts down in the comments below. You can also subscribe. That would make me a very happy man. If you're interested in updates for the channel, you can check out my Twitter, Instagram, or Snapchat, and if you're feeling extra generous, you can check out my Patreon page. Finally, if you want to support my channel more directly while also joining our hoodlum army, you can also check out my merch store. Links are in the description. Please do check it out if you want to. That should be all for now. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay awesome. Goodbye.